Half of your $2 million condo is ours. Sign the deed. That sentence rang across the restaurant, louder than the clinking glasses, louder than the jazz trio in the corner, louder than my own heartbeat. My sister-in-law had just hurled her wine glass onto the marble table. Red liquid spread like blood across the white linen. She pointed at me as if I were a criminal caught in the act. I tightened my grip on the folder that carried the deed to my condo. My name only, my effort only, my sweat, my savings, my long years of quiet discipline. And now here she was demanding it in front of my entire family at my mother's 60th birthday celebration. People at the surrounding tables turned their heads. A couple at the bar paused mid-toast. For them it was a show. For me it was humiliation sharp enough to carve a scar. I looked at my mother, hoping for one shred of defense. She avoided my eyes. My younger brother smirked. Even my father sat frozen, as if siding with silence. The betrayal stung more than the words themselves. The music did not stop. The restaurant lights remained warm and soft. The guests kept laughing, forks against porcelain, conversations flowing. It was as if my existence had been erased in that moment. I was invisible, standing alone at a table that suddenly felt like a stage built for my disgrace. You might wonder how a family arrives at such a moment. I promise I will tell you. But first, let me frame it for you. I live alone in New York. Few people call me just to ask how I am. My life has been defined by discipline, long hours at the bank, quiet meals at home, savings built slowly like bricks in a wall. On my desk lies a set of keys no one in my family ever asked about until now. And yet here in this glittering restaurant, laughter roared around me like an orchestra tuned to drown my voice. They smiled, they posed for photos, they raised their glasses, and I sat with my folder on my lap, gripping the evidence that my independence was real. It is strange the way family celebrations hide under a thin skin of joy. Smiles can be painted on like masks. Toasts can be hollow. You learn to nod, to laugh politely, to play your role, but beneath it, resentment ferments quietly, waiting for its stage. That night was my stage. What they did not know was this: earlier that morning, my lawyer had already sent me an email. The kind of email that changes how you sit, how you breathe, how you prepare. I will explain that later. For now, remember that silence can hold more power than shouting. So when she screamed about taking half of my condo, I did not shout back. I looked at each of them, memorizing their faces in that moment. My mother's proud smile painted over with calculation. My brother's grin, so satisfied at my discomfort. My father's weary shrug, too tired to intervene. And her, the sister-in-law, with her manicured finger, pointing, certain that humiliation would break me. It did not break me. It carved me. Before I tell you how I responded, I want you to do something for me. Tell me where you are watching from and hit subscribe. Families and money, we need to talk. Because what happened that night was not just about me. It was about a truth many of us know, but rarely say out loud. When money appears, masks fall. When property is at stake, blood ties grow teeth. And as you listen, remember this: they thought they had silenced me. They thought they had erased me in that room of laughter and wine. But in reality, they had just opened a story that would travel far beyond that birthday table. I will explain in a moment. When the shouting ended that night, I walked out of the restaurant with my folder pressed against my chest like a shield. The cold air outside steadied me. It reminded me that I still had my own breath, my own 2 feet, and my own key to a place that was truly mine. I should tell you how I got that place, because nothing about it was an accident. My name is Marion. I am 29 years old, and I have worked in banking since the age of 21. The industry is not glamorous for someone like me. I was never the loudest in meetings, never the one taking clients out for long dinners. I was the one arriving before the lights flicked on, the one who stayed after the last elevator ride down. I lived with discipline. Every paycheck was divided the same way: a portion for bills, a portion for modest living, and the rest tucked into savings. Some months it was only a few $100s, some months more. Over time, those bricks became a wall. A decade of quiet deposits, and I had built the foundation for something I never thought possible when I was a child: ownership. The condo was worth $2 million, a number that still feels unreal to say out loud. It was not handed to me. It was the product of years of small sacrifices: no designer handbags, no weekend trips to Paris, like colleagues bragged about, no impulsive spending. I chose soup over steak, secondhand furniture over glossy catalogs, public transit over taxis. Each decision left a small bruise, but together they became strength. I never told my family about the amount I had saved. Experience had taught me better. My mother is a proud woman, but her pride has always been tied to appearances. She loved to tell her friends about my brother's small victories, no matter how shallow. When he managed to hold down a job at a car rental desk for 6 months, she described him as a future manager. When he bought sneakers he could not afford, she posted photos as if he were a fashion icon. For me, she saved silence. Or worse, she saved demands. You make more than us. You should share, she once said during a family dinner. It was not a question, it was a declaration. At that table, my younger brother sat smirking, knowing I would cover the bill again. My father kept chewing, pretending not to hear. My sister-in-law scrolled her phone until it was time to chime in with a sly comment. Family savings are shared savings. That phrase haunted me. Family savings. As if the long nights at my desk, the skipped vacations, the hours spent running numbers were not mine at all, but theirs to claim. Still, I tried to keep peace. I paid for small things here and there, a loan for my brother's overdue rent, a contribution toward my parents' leaking roof, even the occasional birthday gift that cost more than my rent for the month. I told myself it was kindness, that it was easier than fighting. But each act of kindness became an expectation. They learned that my wallet was easier to open than my mouth. The shift happened gradually. My brother lost his job again, and instead of searching for another, he moved into a haze of video games and half-baked excuses. The economy is rough, he said, as if it were rougher for him than for the rest of us. My sister-in-law, meanwhile, sharpened her claws. She began dropping hints in the family group chat. Marion, your savings are family savings. The first time she typed that, I stared at the screen until the letters blurred. I wanted to argue, but my instinct told me to stay quiet. Silence had always been my shield. Others chimed in with emojis, laughing faces, winks, even a thumbs up from my mother. The message was clear: they were uniting in the belief that my sacrifices belonged to them. I withdrew further. I stopped mentioning work promotions, stopped discussing money altogether. I lived quietly in my condo, watering plants on the balcony, cooking small meals for one. My neighbors saw me as the woman who always carried a leather folder under her arm, the kind who checked the mailbox with purpose. But within my family, I became the invisible provider. The one they mocked when absent, the one they targeted when present. The pressure mounted last Thanksgiving. We gathered around my mother's dining table, the air heavy with roasted turkey and unspoken grievances. Halfway through the meal, my mother cleared her throat. Marion, she said, her eyes narrowing in the candlelight, you have done well for yourself. It is time you think of your brother's future, too. My fork froze. Across from me, my brother raised his glass. Half of that condo would solve everything, he said, grinning. We could all share. My sister-in-law pulled a sheet of paper from her purse. It was a photocopy of what looked like a trust agreement, complete with a notary stamp that glistened under the light. She slid it across the table. Sign this, she whispered. It is just a formality. I felt the room close in. My mother smiled as if blessing a wedding. My father stared at his plate, and cousins shifted uncomfortably. It was a performance, and I was cast as the villain if I refused. I pushed the paper back. This is not your property, I said, my voice steady. You are selfish, my mother snapped. After all we gave you, after all we carried, you cannot even share. The words echoed, lodging deeper than any insult I had heard before. But what they did not realize was that someone had been recording. One of the cousins, a teenager addicted to social media, had quietly lifted a phone. Hours later, a clip surfaced on Facebook, me refusing to sign, my mother calling me selfish, my sister-in-law hissing in the background. The comments section lit up. Some viewers sympathized, others mocked. The humiliation spread faster than I could keep up. I lay awake that night, staring at the ceiling of my condo. The silence of my own place was both comfort and cage. They were trying to invade it not just physically with forged documents, but digitally, publicly, socially. And I knew this was only the beginning. There is a moment when silence becomes too heavy, when every glance across a table feels like a verdict. That moment came for me during a Sunday dinner at my mother's house. The dining room smelled of garlic and roasted chicken. The chandelier cast soft yellow light over a table crowded with cousins, uncles, and aunts. Laughter bounced around the walls. For a while, I let myself believe it was just another family gathering. But then the air shifted. My mother raised her glass and cleared her throat. We are here together, she began, smiling, as if she were delivering a sermon. Family means support, and support means sharing. The chatter fell silent. I felt eyes turn toward me before she even spoke my name. Marian, she said, her voice honeyed, you have been blessed with more than enough. It is time to show generosity where it matters most. Your brother and his wife need stability, and you have it. $2 million worth of it. Gasps rippled across the table. Some guests covered their mouths, politely pretending surprise. Others leaned forward, hungry for drama. My brother smirked. My sister-in-law's smile stretched thin and sharp. I stared at my plate, the chicken cooling in the gravy. I had not told them the condo's value. Yet here was my mother reciting the number as if it were common knowledge, as if my private life had been scribbled into the family ledger. My brother leaned closer, elbows on the table. Half of that condo would solve everything for us, he said, grinning like a boy who thought he had won a prize. We could all share. The word share stung. They meant take. Then came the paper. My sister-in-law reached into her purse and pulled out a folder. She slid a document across the table with theatrical flair. It was thick paper, slightly glossy, with what looked like an official notary stamp pressed into the corner. At the top, bold letters spelled, Family Trust Agreement. Sign this, she whispered, though everyone could hear. It is just a formality, a recognition that family property belongs to family. My breath caught. The room seemed to lean closer. The chandelier light shimmered on the page like a spotlight. I placed my hands on the folder I had brought with me, my real deed, my true ownership. I did not open it, not yet. This is not your property, I said, my voice low but steady. The room tensed. My mother's smile collapsed into a sneer. You are selfish, she snapped. After all we gave you, after the years we carried you, this is how you repay us with greed. Laughter rose from the far end of the table, cruel and eager. A cousin muttered something about me being a miser. My father shifted uncomfortably, but as always said nothing. The paper lay there between us, a trap disguised as family duty. I pushed it back. I will not sign. The silence that followed was deafening. My mother's face flushed red. My brother muttered curses under his breath. My sister-in-law hissed like a snake. You will regret this, she said. But what they did not know was that a phone camera had been recording. My cousin's teenager, always glued to his device, had captured the entire exchange. He posted it online before dessert was even served. By the time I drove back to my condo that night, the clip had already spread. The title read, Daughter refuses to share condo worth $2 million with struggling family. The comments poured in. She is heartless, greedy. Who refuses family like that? Some defended me, but their voices drowned in the tide of judgment. Strangers who knew nothing of my sacrifices decided who I was with a few keystrokes. At work, whispers followed me down the hallway. A colleague forwarded the video as if it were a joke. My manager raised an eyebrow, saying only, Hope you can keep your personal life private, Marian. Clients do not like drama. I wanted to scream. To explain that the video told half a story, that it cut out the years I spent scraping together savings, the nights I ate soup, so that one day I could own something real. But explaining felt pointless. Instead, I closed my office door and stared at the email from my lawyer, the one I had received the morning of my mother's birthday dinner. In it lay proof of ownership, scanned copies of the deed, a warning about potential fraud attempts. He had written, Keep the originals safe. Do not sign anything without my review. That advice became my lifeline. I knew my family would not stop. Humiliation was their weapon. Pressure was their tool. They were trying to build a story where I was the villain. And now that the internet had caught wind, the stage was wider than ever. But I also knew this. They had made their move too soon. They had shown their hand with forged papers, with public shaming, with reckless greed. I tightened my grip on my folder, the one that carried the real documents. Let them plot. Let them whisper. Let them post their clips and spread their lies. Because my revenge was only beginning. I thought the video from Thanksgiving would fade. Internet storms rarely last long. Today's scandal is tomorrow's boredom. But my family understood something dangerous. Humiliation works best when it is repeated. The first strike was the video. The second came in the form of an email. It arrived on a Tuesday morning when I was at my desk reviewing loan applications. The subject line read, Ownership Inquiry, Immediate Attention. My stomach dropped before I even opened it. Inside was a forwarded message addressed to my manager and several colleagues. Attached was a PDF of what looked like a deed to my condo. But this one listed not just my name, it listed my brother's name and my sister-in-law's name, too, as co-owners. The email claimed I had hidden assets from my family, that I had stolen what was rightfully theirs. The forged document even carried a digital stamp, a clumsy replica of a notary seal. To the untrained eye, it looked official. To my colleagues, it looked damning. By lunch, whispers swirled. A coworker asked half-joking, "So when do we get invited to the family condo?" Another avoided eye contact altogether. My manager called me into his office. "Marion," he said, folding his hands, "is there any truth to this? Clients are sensitive about financial scandals. We cannot afford—" "There is no truth," I cut him off. "It is a forgery. A family dispute gone public. I will handle it." He leaned back skeptical but unwilling to push further. "Make sure you do." I left his office with my pulse hammering. They had crossed from private betrayal into professional sabotage. My career, everything I had built, was now tangled in their greed. That evening, my phone buzzed with a message from my sister-in-law. A photo appeared first, a screenshot of the forged deed posted on a local gossip page. Below it, her words, "Sign the condo over, or tomorrow I send your private chats to your bank director." Imagine the scandal then. I stared at the message until my vision blurred. My private chats. She must have hacked into something or fabricated more lies. It did not matter. The threat was clear: surrender or be destroyed publicly. I considered replying. Instead, I set the phone down and walked to my balcony. The city lights blinked below, indifferent to my turmoil. I remembered the nights I had eaten canned soup to save money, the mornings I had walked miles to avoid subway fares, the years of isolation. And now they wanted to erase it all with a signature. I poured myself a glass of water and opened the folder that rarely left my side. Inside were the real documents, the original deed with my name alone, the notary stamp pressed deep into the paper, the lawyer's certified letter. I traced my finger along the raised seal. Proof, protection, but also a weapon if used at the right time. That night, I could not sleep. My phone buzzed constantly, group chat messages filled with jabs, relatives chiming in with emojis, even an uncle demanding, "Just make peace, give them what they want." I muted the chat. The silence felt like oxygen. But silence was not enough anymore. The next day at work, I noticed colleagues glancing at me again. A new rumor was spreading that my family was preparing to sue me. My manager asked me to take a few days off until things settle. In banking, reputation is currency. Mine was bleeding fast. I walked out of the glass building and stood on the sidewalk watching people hurry past with their own problems. To them, I was just another woman in a gray coat. To me, I was a woman under siege. That afternoon, I called my lawyer. He listened calmly, then said, "They are overreaching. Forgery, defamation, extortion. You have grounds for more than defense. You have grounds for offense. Gather everything. Keep every message, every fake document. Let them dig their own grave." His voice steadied me. For the first time in weeks, I felt the faint outline of control. Still, the attacks kept coming. My sister-in-law posted on Facebook claiming I was hoarding wealth while family struggled to pay rent. She attached a photo of my building taken from the street as if to prove I lived above them all. Neighbors whispered in the lobby. The doorman raised an eyebrow. Then came the most brazen move. A Saturday evening, I attended a charity gala with colleagues. It was meant to be a quiet night, champagne glasses clinking, polite laughter echoing in the hall. Halfway through, my phone buzzed again. A new post was going viral. A video of my sister-in-law standing in front of my condo building, declaring, "This is family property. She refuses to share. We will take what is ours." The video had thousands of views within hours. Comments poured in accusations, insults, even threats. Strangers felt entitled to judge, to demand, to decide my fate. I excused myself from the gala, stepping outside into the cold. My colleagues watched me go, their whispers trailing behind like smoke. I looked up at the night sky, dark and indifferent, and I made a decision. I would not cower. I would not surrender. If they wanted to play this game in public, I would let them. But I would bring my own evidence, my own story, my own truth. Because what they did not know was that I had been documenting everything. Every email, every message, every forged paper. My lawyer had copies, my folder had the originals. They thought humiliation would break me, but humiliation was becoming fuel. And I promised myself that the next time they tried to corner me, I would not walk away silent. I would walk away victorious. It was almost poetic the way they planned it. Another family gathering, another trap, dressed up as celebration. This time it was my parents' anniversary. A rented banquet hall, gold balloons tied to chairs, a three-tier cake, standing proudly in the corner. Guests filed in with gifts, flowers, and forced smiles. I walked in carrying only my leather folder, my shield, my sword. The air buzzed with tension even before dinner was served. Whispers followed me like shadows. I caught fragments of sentences. That's the one with the condo. Greedy, selfish. Some people avoided my eyes. Others stared too long. My mother greeted me with a kiss on the cheek that felt like a cold stamp. My brother slapped my back with exaggerated cheer. My sister-in-law, dressed in a glittering gown, gave me a smile sharp enough to cut glass. When dessert plates clattered onto the tables, she rose from her seat. The room hushed as if on cue. She held her phone high, the camera lens glinting. "We are live," she announced. My stomach tightened. She turned the camera toward herself, her voice dripping with triumph. "Tonight we will settle a family matter. My dear sister has been refusing to acknowledge that the condo she bought was meant for all of us. Family property, not hers alone." The guests murmured, shifting in their chairs. Some leaned closer, eager to witness drama unfold in real time. Others raised their own phones, ready to record. My sister-in-law gestured toward me. "Here she island, Marion. Will you finally do the right thing and sign the transfer?" From her purse, she produced another document, thicker paper, stamped, signed, all forged. She placed it on the table, slid a pen beside it, and pushed it toward me. My brother added, "Come on, just sign. Half of $2 million solves everything. We can all live better. Why fight your own family?" The camera zoomed closer. The live stream chat buzzed with comments. "Sign it already. Why be so greedy? She looks guilty." Heat rose to my cheeks. My hands trembled, not with fear, but with anger. I reached into my folder. Slowly, deliberately, I placed my documents on the table. The original deed, thick with embossed lettering. The notary stamp pressed deep into the paper. A certified letter from my lawyer outlining the fraud attempts already under review. "This," I said, my voice cutting through the noise, "is the truth." The camera captured every word. I picked up the forged document and held it beside the real deed. "Look closely. One is a forgery, one is the law. My name alone is on this deed. This condo was bought with my money, my years of work. It is mine, entirely mine, and I will not surrender it to liars." Gasps spread through the hall. A few guests craned their necks to see the papers. The livestream comment feed began to shift. "Wait, that one looks official. Did they really fake a deed? This family is scamming her?" My sister-in-law's face turned pale. She stammered. She is lying." But the camera betrayed her. Her earlier confidence crumbled into frantic gestures, her words tumbling into incoherence. My brother grabbed the document back, stuffing it into his pocket, but it was too late. The internet had seen. I gathered my papers, calmly slid them back into my folder, and stood. I will not be signing anything. And from this day forward, I will not be silent. The hall erupted. Guests whispered, filmed, muttered among themselves. Some shook their heads at my family, others at me, but the tide of opinion had shifted. The livestream chat exploded with condemnation, not for me, but for them. "Exposing fake deeds live. Unbelievable. She is smart to keep proof. That sister-in-law is finished." I turned to leave. Behind me, my mother's voice rang out desperate. "Marion, stop. You cannot walk away from family." I paused at the door, looked back once, and said, "Family does not forge documents to steal from each other. Whatever you are not family to me anymore." Then I walked into the night, my folder pressed to my chest, the live stream still buzzing behind me. The fallout began immediately. Clips from the stream spread across social media faster than wildfire. Within hours, the video was trending. Family tries to force daughter to sign away condo gets exposed live. Commentators dissected every second. Some praised my composure, others mocked my relatives' greed. Screenshots of the forged deed circulated compared side by side with my real one. Internet sleuths analyzed stamps, signatures, fonts. The verdict was unanimous. The forgery was laughably bad. News outlets picked it up. A local financial blog ran a headline, Bank Employee Protects Ownership Against Family Fraud Case Study in Resilience. My photo taken mid-speech appeared beside it. At work, colleagues who once whispered behind my back now approached with cautious respect. My manager, who had doubted me, called me into his office again. I saw the video, he admitted. You handled yourself well. Keep your documents safe, and take next week off. Let the noise settle. For the first time in months, I felt the weight shift. I was no longer cornered. I was standing in open air, bruised but unbroken. That night, I lay awake, not from fear, but from resolve. They had tried to shame me, to force me to ruin me. Instead, they had given me a platform. They had live-streamed their own disgrace. What they did not know was that I had already sent copies of every forgery, every threatening message, every email to my lawyer. A file thicker than any folder sat in his office waiting. This battle was no longer about silence. It was about revenge. And I was ready to begin. When the live stream smoke began to clear, I poured tea and sat at my kitchen table like a bookkeeper after closing hours. The city hummed outside, but inside I counted every slight, every message, every forged line. Revenge is not rage. It is record-keeping with purpose. I opened the leather folder, my shield, my ledger, and spread its contents in neat rows, the original deed with its deep, honest seal, the certified letter from my lawyer, screenshots of the family group chat, the email that carried the clumsy forgery to my manager, the blackmail text about private chats. Between each stack, I slid yellow notes, dates, times, who witnessed what, where it happened. I worked slowly, steadily. Anger makes you fast and sloppy, but dignity prefers a measured hand. Before midnight, I wrote a single email to my lawyer with a subject line that felt like a bell tolling, full package evidence, timeline, witnesses. I attached everything and ended with one sentence. Proceed as you judge best. I will testify to each point. Then I sent a second email, and that one changed the weather. Her name is Lila, an old classmate who became a financial reporter. We had drifted apart as adults do, but respect remained. I wrote plainly, I am the woman from the viral video. Here is the full documentation. If you run a story, it must include the law, not just the spectacle. I attached copies, redacted the addresses, and kept the tone clean. No dramatics. Just the truth in black ink. Lila called before dawn. Her voice sounded like coffee strong awake. You did everything right, she said. If we publish, we will center legal literacy deeds, notary integrity, the difference between sharing and stealing. You will approve the quotes. Make it about quiet work, I answered, not about me. Sometimes those are the same things, she said, and hung up to write. By noon, her article went live. When family becomes fraud, how one owner defended her home. She did not call me a hero. She walked readers through the simplest truths. A deed is a deed. A forgery is a crime. Humiliation can be a tactic. The price of the condo appeared once written the way a teacher would chalk a lesson, $2 million, then set aside so the law could speak. The piece traveled like a steady river rather than a flood. People shared it not for outrage, but for the relief of clarity. Nurses, teachers, veterans, retired secretaries, they wrote in the comments about savings built one careful year at a time. Some admitted a familiar pressure from relatives. A few posted their own folders, proof of mortgages they had paid alone. Reading them, I felt less like a character in a scandal and more like a citizen in a classroom. That afternoon, an email slid into my inbox from a women's finance organization I respected. Speak at our spring symposium, it read. Topic boundaries documentation and saying no. They offered a modest honorarium, and more importantly, a microphone I could trust. I accepted, adding a line my father once said before he grew quiet. Teach what you had to learn the hard way. My lawyer moved faster than headlines. He filed a notice reserving claims for defamation, attempted extortion, and fraud. He requested that the platform hosting my sister-in-law's video preserve the file and the live stream metadata. He drafted a cease and desist that read like steel no thunder, just the clean edge of statute. He also asked a forensic document examiner to review the forged deed. 2 days later, the report came back with phrases that made my mouth taste like iron, non-genuine impression, mismatched vector edges, pixel halation around the notary crest. In plain words, fake. I asked him for one more step, small but symbolic. We filed for a civil protective order. It did not bar my relatives from breathing the same air, but it forbade contact intended to coerce me about my home. When the clerk stamped the paper, I felt something unclench across my shoulders. The law had put its hand on the scale, not favoring me, simply restoring balance. Meanwhile, the internet continued its theater memes, commentary, side by side screenshots of the documents like a spot the difference game. I refused to feed it. I posted precisely once I will not litigate my life online. The court and my folder will speak. Then I let silence do the rest. Silence, however, is not idleness. I wrote to the building's homeowners association with a tidy packet copies of the police incident number tied to the forgery, a photograph of the stranger filming at my lobby door, a request that staff log any attempt to enter under my name. The board replied with brisk reassurance the doorman would keep a written log. Security would save footage for 90 days. Any family deliveries would be refused unless I approved in writing. The world had tried to crowd into my doorway. The locks answered on my behalf. At the bank, my manager invited me back with an apology delivered awkwardly but sincerely. In this line of work, he said, we get jumpy. You handled yourself with documentation and restraint. That matters. He assigned me to a project few. Receive a client seminar on personal record keeping. I stood in a small conference room the next week. 90 minutes of questions from ordinary people who wanted to know how to title accounts correctly, how to store originals, how to say no without becoming a villain. I spoke slowly. I showed them the edge of my folder and promised that order is not ice, it is warmth you can hold in your hands. But revenge to be complete must reach those who raise the blade. I did not need to shout or slam doors. I wrote letters. To my mother I sent 3 sentences. I have loved you with duty more than with words. Duty has limits. I will not discuss my home again. To my brother likewise, 3 employment is dignity. Find some. I will not fund your rest. To my sister-in-law, my lawyer sent the only letter she deserved terms for an apology posted where her accusations had lived, and a warning that any future mention of my property would trigger immediate action in court. No one replied in writing. Of course they did not. Pride resists ink. Then came an unexpected kindness. A neighbor in my building, widowed bookish, the sort who notices and does not intrude, slipped a note under my door. I watched the clip she wrote in careful cursive. You were calm. If you ever need someone to walk to the market with knock, the note did more for me than any headline. It reminded me what normal looks like: 2 people. A sidewalk, a grocery list, shared the way people share weather. Days passed, the noise dulled. But families like mine dislike quiet. They mistake it for defeat. On a gray morning, the concierge called up to say a certified envelope awaited my signature. I rode the elevator down pen in hand and accepted what turned out to be a legal letter from my brother's new attorney, a cousin's friend who fancied himself a gladiator. The letter was smoke and mirrors, claims of implied promises, bluster about customary sharing, not one statute cited correctly. My lawyer smiled when he read it. They have brought a toy sword to a courthouse, he said, and drafted a reply that ended with a sentence. I now adore. We invite you to test your theory under oath. If revenge has a taste, it is not sweet, it is clean. Doors that were propped open by guilt swing shut with a simple click. Lila called again to say the symposium wanted a preview session, recorded 10 minutes on camera about the unglamorous habits that keep chaos out. We filmed in her office, 2 chairs, a plant, a simple microphone. I held up a battered binder, not the leather folder, but a workaday twin, and said to the lens, keep originals in one place, keep scanned copies in another, tell 2 people you trust where both live. You are not paranoid. You are prepared. The clip traveled far, church groups, community centers, even a retirement club in Queens. I received a stack of letters written in fountain pen, the ink slightly smudged by careful hands. And then the part you have been waiting for, because every revenge story holds a small, almost tender twist. A week after the symposium clip, I found an envelope under my door with my mother's handwriting. Inside, a letter in her looping script. We need a place for a short while. Just a small room. We will be quiet. Family stays together. No demands, no numbers. A plea dressed as a proverb. I sat with it a long time. Old love wrestled with new resolve. I boiled water, watched steam rise, thought of childhood breakfasts and of grown-up nights alone, counting every dollar's journey. I set the letter beside the deed on the table and felt the scales of my life in balance at last. What they did not know was that I had already prepared my answer months before any of this began, on the day I signed the closing papers and the notary pressed the honest seal. This home is sanctuary, not stage. I wrote back a single card. I hope you find the peace you need. This address will not be it. I placed it in the outgoing mail, and for the first time in a long season, slept without waking to check the locks. Of course, refusal never ends the story, it only turns the page. The next morning, my phone buzzed with an unknown number, the voice on the line raw and indignant. My sister-in-law. "So that is your decision," she said. "You will see what it costs." Perhaps, but cost is a language I speak, and I have been keeping the books. They say revenge tastes best when served cold. In truth, it is quieter than people imagine. The week after the letter exchange, silence wrapped my life like snow. My mother stopped calling. My brother vanished from the group chat. My sister-in-law kept her threats vague, a storm rumbling on the horizon. Yet beneath the hush, consequences stirred. The symposium clip kept circulating. A church in Ohio asked permission to play it at a financial literacy night. A retired librarian in Vermont wrote me a handwritten note, blue ink steady script. "Your binder advice saved me from losing track of my will papers." Thank you. These small acknowledgments stacked up like bricks in a wall I had never expected to build respect. Meanwhile, my lawyer called with news the platform had complied with preservation requests. The livestream metadata, comments, and even private admin notes were secured. "This is the rope they wrapped around themselves," he said. "All we need is to tug." I let him tug. Court filings are not cinematic, but they are surgical. He submitted evidence of forgery, blackmail, defamation. He attached the forensic examiner's report. He requested damages not grandiose, just enough to remind them that lies have price tags. A date was set for a preliminary hearing. Word spread quickly. My brother texted, "You wouldn't really drag us into court, would you? It's family." I replied with one line, "Family does not forge deeds." He did not answer. But the internet did. Commentators revisited the live stream this time with the court filing in hand. Analysts explained how property law protects owners, how blackmail leaves digital fingerprints, how silence does not equal guilt. Strangers debated whether forgiveness was possible. Most agreed it was not required. The irony was brutal. The very public stage my relatives had chosen now turned against them. Their followers mocked them. Former friends unfriended them. Even casual acquaintances whispered about that fake deed family. One evening, while walking home from the bank, I passed a coffee shop window and saw my sister-in-law inside. She looked smaller than I remembered, hunched over her phone, scrolling frantically. A waitress brought her the bill. She fumbled with coins. Her credit card apparently declined. For a fleeting second, pity brushed against me. But pity is not reconciliation. I walked on. The hearing arrived like a storm that finally breaks. My lawyer spoke calmly. Their lawyer stumbled through bluster. The judge listened, then ordered mediation before trial with a stern warning. Forgery and extortion are crimes, not family squabbles. Outside the courthouse, cameras waited. A reporter shoved a microphone toward me. "Do you see this as revenge?" I answered honestly, number revenge is hot. This is colder. This is order. I built my home with work. I will defend it with law. That clip traveled further than any scandal. Older viewers, tired of viral shouting, shared it as a kind of balm. Finally, someone speaking plain wrote one. What my relatives did not know was that mediation would not be mercy. It would be exposure under oath transcripts that would outlive live streams. And I would be ready, folder in hand. When the mediator closed her notebook and declared the session finished, the room exhaled like a balloon losing air. My brother avoided my eyes. My sister-in-law's lipstick had smudged from nervous chewing. My mother sat stiff as marble, muttering prayers that did not change the record typed before us. The outcome was clear. They would issue a written apology, retract public statements, and cease all claims to my property. No money would change hands except what they would owe if they violated the agreement again. The mediator said it plainly, "This home is yours, Marion, and yours alone. That is not up for discussion." Walking out of that beige conference room into the spring air, I felt something loosen in my chest. For months, I had lived under siege emails, forged deeds, blackmail threats, public humiliation. Now the law had put a period where they had scribbled question marks. I returned to my condo that evening. I set the folder on the kitchen counter, poured myself tea, and looked out at the balcony where potted herbs lined the railing. The city glowed indifferent but steady. This was not victory in the cinematic sense. No fireworks, no applause, just peace, which is rarer and more precious than gold. Still, the world did notice. The article my friend Lila wrote continued to circulate, now updated with the mediation's result. The headline read, "Quiet Strength Woman Protects Home Law Defeats Forgery." My photograph, me leaving the courthouse with my folder, was printed beside it. Readers wrote letters: a retired nurse in Kansas, a widower in Florida, a community college student in Oregon. They thanked me not for revenge, but for showing that silence could be powerful when armed with proof. The symposium speech followed. I stood before an auditorium of women, teachers, nurses, office clerks, single mothers who nodded as I spoke. Documentation is not paranoia, I said. It is protection. Family can love you, but family can also demand what is not theirs. Saying no is not selfish. It is survival. Applause rose not like thunder, but like steady rain, gentle cleansing. A week later, another letter arrived. My mother's handwriting again, shaky this time. "We regret how far things went. We hope one day you forgive us. We were blinded by need, pride, and pressure. We miss you." I read it twice, folded it carefully, and placed it in the same folder that had carried every proof of betrayal. Some wounds close, but leave scars. Forgiveness is not amnesia. I did not reply. What they did not know was that I had already forgiven in my own way, not by welcoming them back, but by refusing to let bitterness eat through me. My home was not a fortress of anger. It was sanctuary. Neighbors waved at me in the lobby with new warmth. At the bank, clients greeted me with respect. In quiet hours, I watered my balcony. Herbs listened to the hum of traffic below and felt rooted. One evening, a neighbor's child asked why. I always carried the same leather folder. I smiled. "Because it holds my peace," I said. The child tilted her head, puzzled but satisfied with the answer. Peace, after all, is not the absence of conflict. It is the decision not to surrender what is yours, no matter who demands it. So here I am telling you this story, not because I enjoy reliving the humiliation, but because I know someone listening has faced the same kind of demand. Give us what you earned, share what is not theirs to claim, sign what you never agreed to. And if you are listening, remember this: you are not selfish for protecting what you built. You are not cruel for saying no. Sometimes no is the most loving word you can say to yourself. Now it is your turn. If you think I made the right move, comment right. If you have a smarter way to deal with greedy family, share your idea below. Because families and money, well, they test the strongest walls. But walls built on truth do not fall.